Crash Course on History of Australia, a broad overview of Australia's history, including its Indigenous peoples, European settlement, and modern history. Australia has a rich and complex history that spans tens of thousands of years. Indigenous Australians, also known as Aboriginal Australians, have inhabited the continent for at least 65,000 years, developing diverse cultures and languages across the vast landmass. European settlement in Australia began in 1788, when the British claimed the land for the Crown and established a penal colony in Sydney. Over the next century, the British expanded their colonial control across the continent, displacing and often violently subjugating Indigenous peoples. In the late 19th century, Australia became a federation of 6 states, and in 1901 it became an independent nation within the British Empire. The country experienced significant social, economic, and political changes throughout the 20th century, including its involvement in 2 world wars and the Vietnam War, as well as shifts in its demographics, culture, and governance. One of the most significant events in modern Australian history was the 1967 referendum, which granted Indigenous Australians the right to be counted in the national census and gave the federal government the power to make laws specifically for them. This was a major turning point in the recognition and rights of Indigenous peoples in Australia, though many ongoing issues and inequalities persist to this day. Another notable event in Australian history was the introduction of the White Australia policy, which was in place from the late 19th century until the mid-20th century and aimed to restrict non-European immigration. This policy had a lasting impact on the country's demographics and social dynamics, and its legacy continues to be debated and explored today. Other significant events in Australian history include the gold rush of the 1850s, which brought thousands of migrants to the country and led to significant economic and social changes, and the construction of iconic landmarks such as the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House. Overall, Australia's history is a complex tapestry of Indigenous cultures, colonialism, and modern developments, shaped by a range of social, political, and economic factors. One interesting story from Australia's history is the story of Ned Kelly, a notorious outlaw who became a folk hero in the late 19th century. Kelly and his gang were known for their daring heists and clashes with the police, and Kelly himself became a symbol of resistance against colonial authority. He was eventually captured and executed, but his legend lives on in Australian folklore and popular culture. Another intriguing aspect of Australian history is the country's unique flora and fauna, which have played an important role in shaping the environment and culture of the continent. From the iconic kangaroo to the bizarre platypus, Australia's wildlife is both fascinating and unique. Here are the top 12 major historic events in Australia. 1. Arrival of Indigenous Australians. At least 65,000 years ago, Indigenous Australians arrived on the continent, developing diverse cultures and languages over millennia. 2. European settlement. In 1788, the British claimed the land for the Crown and established a penal colony in Sydney, beginning centuries of colonial rule. 3. Gold rush. In the 1850s, a gold rush brought thousands of migrants to Australia, transforming the economy and society. 4. Federation. In 1901, Australia became a federation of 6 states and a Commonwealth nation. 5. World War I. Australia fought alongside the British in World War I, experiencing significant loss of life and contributing to the country's national identity. 6. White Australia policy. From the late 19th century until the mid-20th century, the White Australia policy aimed to restrict non-European immigration, shaping the country's demographics and social dynamics. 7. World War II. Australia fought in World War II, defending against Japanese attacks and contributing to Allied victory. 8. Post-war immigration. From the 1950s onwards, Australia experienced a wave of post-war immigration, welcoming people from a range of countries and cultures. 9. 1967 referendum. The 1967 referendum granted Indigenous Australians the right to be counted in the national census and gave the federal government the power to make laws specifically for them, marking a major turning point in recognition and rights for Indigenous peoples. 10. Vietnam War. Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War was controversial and polarizing, sparking protests and political debate. 11. Construction of iconic landmarks. The construction of landmarks such as the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House have become symbols of Australian ingenuity and creativity. 12. Modern developments. Australia has experienced significant social, economic, and political changes in recent decades, including the legalisation of same-sex marriage and ongoing debates over climate change policy. In summary, Australia's history is a complex and fascinating story, shaped by Indigenous cultures, colonialism, and modern developments. From the arrival of Indigenous Australians tens of thousands of years ago to the construction of iconic landmarks and ongoing debates over contemporary issues, the country's history is a rich tapestry of experiences and perspectives. And now, as promised, a poem about Australia's history. Australia, land of ancient culture and new beginnings, a continent of contrasts, of beauty and strife, of indigenous peoples, with stories never ending, and colonizers, who forever changed its life. From the first arrival of the Aboriginals, through centuries of rich and diverse cultures, to the British colonizers, with their penal hobble and the gold rush that brought a new adventure. A federation born, a nation now created, a war fought for the empire, with its price, a white Australia policy, its legacy debated, and landmarks built, with daring and sacrifice. From Ned Kelly, a hero and an outlaw, to the unique wildlife that still amazes us all, Australia's history, with its highs and its flaws, reminds us of the stories, both big and small. So let us honour the past, with all its complexity, and learn from it, as we shape the future we see, for Australia's history, with its rich diversity, is a legacy that we all can be proud to carry. *****, we hope this video has given you a taste of all the incredible experiences Australia has to offer. If you're ready to start planning your own adventure to Australia, please ensure to use our booking.com referral link. https://www.booking.com/index.html $aid=7989335 to book your flights, hotels, car rentals, local attractions, and more. It's an easy and kind way to support this channel and make sure you get the best possible deals on your trip. Thank you. And Hub Metaverse team.